One of the best things about Australia is the mixture of cultures. In our history, many different cultures have come to our country. We have European, American, Asian, African, and Middle Eastern people living together all over Australia. We have all the food, traditions, sports, and languages mixing together. Another thing I like about my country is the sport and love of being outside. In the summer, we all love to go to the beach to swim, sunbake, and relax. In the winter, many different sports are played. Australian football, rugby, basketball, and football. Australia has many types of environments: rainforests and coral reefs in the north, deserts in the centre, and mountains, large forests, and farming land around the coast. I live in Melbourne. I love our food, sport, and environment. We have our beautiful beaches for summer, mountains and forests for walking and cycling, big stadiums for our sport, and cafes and restaurants all over the city.
4G is important in the United States because it was a major upgrade to our cell phone system. It allows the cell phones to browse the webs about 10 times faster than the normal 3G or digital used to. A lot of people like it. The only setback is it's only in major cities like New York, Detroit, Los Angeles, places like that where the cities are big and the populations are high. However, it does make the communications with cell phones faster and surfing the web with cell phones and your other devices such as tablets and iPads much, much quicker. Most people really enjoy it, although it is a little more expensive than normal.
My favourite city in Australia is Melbourne. It is my home. For many years, Australia's two biggest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, have been competing with each other. The two cities try to have the best food, art, sport, international events, and business. For several years, Melbourne has been the world's most livable city. It has many parks and sporting facilities all around the city, so all the people who live there can have safe, beautiful places to enjoy the outdoors. Melbourne also has many sections where cultural groups live. There are Italians, Greeks, Turkish, Chinese, Vietnamese, and many other immigrants living in the city. They have many restaurants and traditions, which are all combined in Melbourne. Melbourne is a very multicultural city. It is nice to have such a variety and combination of cultures all in one city. Melbourne also has many old buildings from the early years of the country's history. It is interesting to see the older buildings of Parliament House, the State Library, St. Patrick's Cathedral, Old Treasury, Flinders Street Station, and the Royal Exhibition Building in a city of skyscrapers and modern apartments. I like Melbourne for all the combinations it has: new and old, Eastern and Western cultures, sport and art, music and dancing, studying and business. I have visited many other Australian cities, but I still love my home Melbourne the most. I love the weather we have: cool winters and hot summers, autumns which can be sunny, then 5 minutes later raining, spring with all its colours and culture. Melbourne is definitely my favourite city in Australia. Before Europeans came to Australia, Aborigines lived all over the continent. Because of the size and environment of Australia, several hundred nations existed all over the country. Each had their own leaders, languages, and traditions. In modern culture, many languages have been lost, and their religion is only practiced by a few Aborigines. This is because over 75% of Aborigines live in cities. The rest still live in their traditional lands, and even less Aborigines live a traditional life. It is thought that the first Aborigines came to Australia over 40,000 years ago and lived in large tribes which hunted and gathered their food. They never built cities, permanent buildings, or greatly changed the landscape. Instead, they lived off the land and moved around camping sites to find food and water. They did leave many beautiful rock paintings, which show images of the events of their lives and their religion. The dream time was the spiritual time in which the world was created. Aboriginal religious rituals celebrate this time, and their stories involve many animals, spirits, and people. Their culture developed a unique style of dance and music, which celebrates the local animals and their dreamtime stories. To make music, they used the didgeridoo, music sticks, and their voices. After European settlement, Aborigines were forced from their lands and killed if they resisted. They have been prosecuted and mistreated for decades. In the last 60 years, Aborigines have been given the right to vote and receive federal government apologies and assistance. For a long time they were treated poorly, and only now are they starting to get the respect their ancient culture deserves.
We're at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. This is the place where every major artifact that has anything to do with space exploration and flight leading up to probably just a little bit short of the present day, everything from the Wright brothers' first flyer to modern aircraft. We've got some of the early spaceships, including Apollo 11 and a lunar lander, and everything in between.
Hi, my name is Alan Himes, and on the morning of September 11th, 2001, I was at work. I was doing an internship for engineering, preparing actually to come to France to study in Besançon, and so I was just doing my normal stuff at work. Someone mentioned that there was a plane had flown into the Twin Towers. There was a lot of speculation about whether it was an accident, whether it was intentional, and then of course the second plane made sure that it was intentional. And so we looked online. We couldn't really find a lot of information. We watched the small television that one of my coworkers had. And then, I guess most interestingly to me in the evening was during my martial arts class. The class took on a life very similar to what we had been experiencing during the day. What I mean is, we worked out very hard. We were very intense about our training. We put a lot of passion and energy into it. That was my experience of September 11th. I guess, to me, the thing is, I wouldn't say that 9/11 was not an important event, and of course it was an important event, but if we reacted the way that we reacted, then we were doing exactly what the terrorists wanted us to do. So, to me, it was pretty obvious that we needed to just stay calm and respond appropriately, but not go crazy like we actually did. And we got ourselves into a lot longer mess than we needed to. Halloween, of course, it's a holiday where people dress up. Even adults now are dressing up more and more. They take it as an opportunity to act crazy, because if you're in costume, then it's not really you. Your identity is somewhat hidden. It kind of gives you an excuse. It's a license given by the holiday. But anyway, when you're a kid, you go trick-or-treating, which is to go door to door. Essentially, you're asking for candy. No one really gives out tricks anymore, but you say trick-or-treat, treat being candy, and a trick being some sort of game or something non-candy. But it doesn't really happen, so I can't really comment on it. Well, I did have people give me fruit when I was a kid, which I thought was kind of cool. You know, some people think that's dangerous because you can put bad things in the fruit. Never really worried about it too much. I did have somebody give me pennies one time, so they just dumped a whole bowl of coins into my basket. I mean, I would have rather have had candy, I guess. But one bad thing about Halloween is that all the candy really just goes bad. After you've had it for a while, you can't eat all this candy because you get a huge bag full, and it takes forever to eat it, and then it gets soft, and it's not very good. Think about Halloween. One is the Peter Rabbit costume that I wore when I was a little kid. It's a children's book series where there's a rabbit, of course, and he's got a red nose and a white tail, and my grandmother made a costume out of that. And then there was another time on Halloween, I remember, I have this image of me walking up a driveway, and then all of a sudden there was this bright light in front of it because I was going to ask for candy to go. I was trick-or-treating, and the light was blinding me. I didn't understand what was going on, and there was a voice behind the light, and then I finally made it to the door, and I couldn't really see. They gave me some candy, and then I left. And my mom afterwards said, "Well, you know what the light was, right?" And I said, "No, I don't. What was it?" She said, "Well, that was somebody who was actually recording all of the costumes of the kids who came by." So I thought that was kind of interesting. Social media is becoming a bigger part of business and marketing in particular. So it's something that I have to be familiar with, but I prefer just to know the basic concepts and leave the implementation up to someone else. I'm not so excited about the idea of Coke sending out a million messages to people on Facebook or communicating with... I personally am not excited about communicating with companies through Facebook. There are very few companies to which I feel very loyal. So I use social media more for my interests, artistic interests, or outdoorsy interests.
Yesterday we went to the North American Auto Show, and what that is car companies from all over the world will bring automobiles to Detroit, and they preview show like all their new cars coming up, their electric ones, and all the new designs, for 2011, and some for even 2012. And some cars are prototype cars, which they haven't put into production yet, but they're thinking about making, and what they want to do is get the public's reaction, and you get to see if we would like them or would like to drive them or things like that. And they test new colors and new designs and the way they would handle and drive and stuff, and the car companies use that input to decide what they're going to make for the next year or the following year. And it really is neat because you get to see so many new things, and you get to talk to a lot of the dealers and see how much some of these cars would cost and stuff like that.
At the end of my garden there is a small river, and the river is controlled by some sluice gates which prevent the flow of water or encourage the flow of water when it rains, and the water level normally is quite low because as it runs through the town, it's actually like a canal, so it's concrete either side, and the water can't escape or make its own path. Okay, and on the river we do have some ducks and various other wildlife, and I was fortunate enough to see this year that one of the ducks had 9 babies, and one of them was absolutely bright yellow. The others were all darker, and the one of the wild animals obviously got hold of 2 of them, so instead of 9 now there are only 7. And one of those that died, unfortunately, was the yellow one.
Gone, almost gone, but you can still see it. Awesome, yes, it's like a kind of tradition between Japanese and American people. The Japanese, like I think the empire of Japan Empire, they give those trees in 1914. I don't know what was the occasion. That's what I know. It's kind of tradition. It's showing the friendship between Japan and USA. It's always festival. Always festival.
Hello, my name is Taylor, and I'm here to talk about food habits in America. The typical American usually ingests a lot of fast food, so they usually aren't very healthy. The usual fast food restaurant that most Americans visit is McDonald's because the food is delicious but high in fat and carbs. But most Americans usually just work that off. Then there are select few who eat it and then go home and sit around all day. They do not do nothing but stare at the TV or play a video game, when they could be probably outside riding a bike, skateboard, playing a fun game like tag or frisbee or skate. We Americans have a food pyramid that we usually don't use very much because we don't look at it. We can, if we need to make a very nutritious and healthy meal that will taste probably really good, but we usually do not.
Welcome to your audio tour of Washington, D.C. with your guide, Eric. We're going to start in the middle of Pennsylvania Avenue, which connects the White House to the Capitol building. As we go down Pennsylvania Avenue, we get to the Capitol, which is the second oldest public building in Washington, D.C. It has a 9 million pound cast iron dome, 288 feet tall. We turn around from the Capitol and we go down the National Mall, where we see the major Smithsonian museums like the Museum of American History, Museum of Natural History, and the Air and Space Museum. Together, they make up the largest museum complex in the world. As we continue down the National Mall, we pass the Washington Monument, a memorial to the father of the United States, George Washington. It is the tallest all-stone structure in the world. Moving forward, we get to the Lincoln Memorial, a memorial to Abraham Lincoln, one of the major presidents in American history. Also around the Lincoln Memorial is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and the Korean War Veterans Memorial. After the Lincoln Memorial, we go to the White House, the oldest public building in Washington, D.C. It was designed by an Irish immigrant architect named James Hovan, and it's actually much smaller than it was originally designed to be. Even so, it still has 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, and it has a total of 55,000 square feet.
The Welsh flag was officially adopted as Wales's official flag in 1959. The flag consists of a red dragon on a green and white background. Even though the flag was only officially adopted as Wales's flag in 1959, the red dragon itself has been associated with Wales for centuries. It started in the 9th century when the King of Wales went into battle with a flag of a red dragon on it, and it has been passed down to generation, and it was used by the Tudors, who were kings in the Middle Ages, and now it has been officially adopted as Wales's national flag.
Our national holiday is St. Patrick's Day, which is celebrated every year on the 17th of March. St. Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland. He came to Ireland to convert Irish people to Christianity. Years ago, when my children were quite young, we used to go into Dublin City on St. Patrick's Day and view the large parade which is held every year. The parade would contain American and Irish music bands, including motorised floats which would pass along the city centre.
As for us, they seem to think we all live in castles and drink tea all day long. You look through a French magazine and all the men are dressed for a 1920s shooting party. Tweed suits, tie, leather shoes. Don't they realise we prefer to wear a nice comfortable tracksuit or jeans and a t-shirt? And they seem to think we all live our lives queuing and saying, after you. No, after you. They've obviously never been in a pub at closing time. Then it's every man for himself, almost as rude as the French themselves. Also, they seem to think we all send our children to public school. We can't all afford that. It's just that we know a school uniform makes our kids work harder when they're at school, instead of them letting them lounge around in their own clothes. The last time I met a Frenchman over here, he asked me to take him to a cricket match. I told him only public school boys and old men go to cricket now. Everyone else plays football. And he asked me if I was a football hooligan. The cheek.
George Washington was the first President of the United States of America, serving from 1789 to 1797. Washington was born into a wealthy and well-connected colonial Virginia family who owned tobacco plantations and had many slaves. Today, Washington is universally regarded as the father of his country. He had a vision of a great and powerful nation that would be built on Republican ideals. He presided over the writing of the Constitution in 1787 and became the first president by unanimous choice. Historians praise Washington for his selection and supervision of his generals, his encouragement of morale, and his ability to hold together his armies. He retired from presidency in 1797. At his death, Washington was hailed as first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen.
When I was young, the only Frenchmen we ever saw were the Onion Johnnies who came around Southampton housing estates with strings of onions dangling from their bikes. It was a cause of great excitement, as even in the late 1950s onions were in short supply, and Mum was happy to pay a few pence extra for something she couldn't get in the shops. So for a long time afterwards, the image we all had of the French was bikes and onions. The striped Breton jumper, beret and Gauloise came later, as people began taking holidays in the nearest parts of France, and came back trying to copy the style of the local fishermen. Or perhaps they thought that what Yves Montand and Maurice Chevalier wore in the films was actually the style to copy. More recently, the fashion has been to declare that all French people are extremely rude, refusing even to try to understand our pathetic attempts at their language. We complain that after spending several minutes working out what to say, the French either answer us in English or wave their hands around and walk off. And they're English. They think it's so perfect, but you can tell they're not English just by listening to them. It's not like our perfect French pronunciation. And then there's the food. We all know they don't eat frogs and snails every day, but why do they have to put so much garlic on and all those herbs? Why can't they just cook a nice plain meal and not spoil it with all the muck they pour over it? Have you ever tried to drive in France? They're maniacs. I'm sure half of them only drive with their knees. Until they get to a roundabout, then it's full throttle and devil take the hindmost.
Graduation in the United States symbolizes the end of one thing and the beginning of a new thing for most people, whether it be graduating from junior high school, graduating from high school, college, or any kind of trade school. It's a symbol that we take in the United States as something is ending, but also something very new and exciting is also going to begin for you. So when you graduate, you're usually ending one thing, but you're getting the opportunity to begin many new things. So people view this as almost a way to say it would be a new start, or a way to show that they're going to move on to new things in their life, and they're going to change things and just have a good fresh start of things. But most people like graduation because it can be very exciting, because it is a sense of accomplishment, and most people are very proud of that, and their families. In America, the hamburger is not bought or made at McDonald's. Yes, we do have McDonald's here in America, but when people make hamburgers, they usually go to the store, they buy hamburger, they buy all the fixings for it, ketchup and mustard and lettuce and tomato and onions, and they usually will go home and start their barbecue or their grills, and they'll cook hamburgers that way. That's how people prefer to make hamburgers here. We don't like to buy that fast food junk, and it's not good for you, it's not healthy, so we usually make them at home, and we make them the way we want to and put the stuff on them that we want, like pickles and tomatoes and lettuce and mayonnaise and onions, and enjoy them usually in an outdoor setting with family, friends. Usually when we celebrate things, we have barbecues like that. But yes, we do have McDonald's, but that is now not how an American hamburger is made. To go to McDonald's and buy one that way is not good and not healthy, and they're usually not very tasty.
12 years. I came here for school. I went to university here, and I become a network engineering, and I find a job in Verizon, one of the largest actually cell phone company. It's not a cell phone, like it's like a T-Mobile or whatever. This kind of company. I worked there almost 9 years, and before the crisis hit the economy, Verizon laid off more than 50,000 people, and I was one of them. End of 2007, 2008. And I decided to, open this kind of business, and now I'm all right. I have a couple cars, 3 cars, one SUV, I have a couple drivers. They're doing okay, not bad.
The new iPhone 5. Well, the new phone is much bigger than the old one. The screen is about a ½ inch longer. It's a little bit faster processor. It has many new and exciting new applications, like it has a built-in GPS with Yahoo Maps. It has many more new things that they added with iTunes and the App Store. Anyone that can get one, I think, should. They'd be really impressed by it. The phone is much better than the iPhone 4 and 4S were. The amount of just the new things they implemented into the software and Siri and the processor, it's just, I can't even begin to name them all. There's a new thing called Passport, which allows you to scan your credit cards and debit cards right from your phone when making purchases. It's lighter, thinner, and like I said, the screen is bigger. There's more room for icons, bigger viewing area for movies and books, and so many updates that they did. Oh, and plus, it's now 4G with LTE, which means the internet speed is much, much faster than it was. Enjoy.
I can't believe the kind of garbage that some people call art. Yesterday, my girlfriend dragged me to the Modern Art Gallery to see an exhibition she read about in the paper. It was 5 or 6 so-called installations made of pieces of plastic, wood, and paper that just seemed to be thrown on the floor. It was a mess, basically. Just like the floor in my sister's house when my 2-year-old nephew leaves all his toys out, but less colorful. Come to think of it, if you'd given those pieces of plastic, wood, and paper to my nephew, he probably could have created something just as good. I guess sometimes the cleaner ends up throwing the art like that in the trash at the end of the day, because they probably find it hard to figure out what's an exhibit and what's just litter. I think if a painting or installation looks like something I could have done myself in 15 minutes, it doesn't deserve to be called art. But when I say that, People like my girlfriend say I'm uncultured. I reckon a lot of people who say they appreciate the kind of stuff we saw yesterday are just pretending. Deep down they know it's rubbish, but they don't want to be the first ones to admit it, because, unlike me, they're afraid of being looked down upon.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm working in Paris at the moment as a scientist. Originally I come from the UK, from a small town called Blackburn near Manchester. My interests are most sports, but especially football, and I follow Blackburn Rovers as my favourite football team. I've recently been to South Africa for the Football World Cup, and my main impression was that I hated the Vuvuzelas, but loved seeing the South African crowd being so excited about having the first World Cup in Africa. I was supporting the English team in South Africa. However, I'm very disappointed at the moment, seeing as we lost to the Germans yesterday and are no longer in the tournament. Goodbye.
Bonfire Night is celebrated in the United Kingdom on the evening of the 5th of November. It commemorates the failed attempt on King James I's life as a means of restoring Catholicism to the country. A man named Guy Fawkes was caught with gunpowder and matches under the Houses of Parliament, and as such, Bonfire is sometimes referred to as Guy Fawkes Night. It is predominantly an event for children. When I was a child, I used to attend a bonfire every year, which would include a big fire on top of which was burned a dummy which was supposed to represent Guy Fawkes. Fireworks are also an important accompaniment to the fire, and they used to be my favourite part. My friends and I used to dress up our guy in unwanted clothes and then take it around the streets asking for pennies for the guy in order to raise money for fireworks. I remember the typical food associated with Bonfire Night that I used to eat included baked potatoes, parking cake and toffee apples. Each year at school we used to recite the poem, Remember, remember the 5th of November, gunpowder and treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should never, ever be forgot.
Halloween is celebrated on the 31st of October every year, mainly in America, but also in England too. Typically, in the week leading up to Halloween, people will carve jack-o'-lanterns, which consist of a hollowed-out pumpkin with a candle inside. On the night of Halloween, groups of children dress up as in things which are perceived to be scary, such as ghosts or witches. They then go from door to door playing trick or treat. The idea is that the house owner gives the children sweets or a bit of money, otherwise the children will play a trick on the house owner. However, this is a mostly idle threat. As you grow older, Halloween becomes less significant. However, I do plan to attend a Halloween fancy dress party in Oberkampf on the night of Halloween this year, since it falls on a Saturday.
Welcome to the Lincoln Memorial. This is the Lincoln Memorial is finished in 1922. The statue inside the Lincoln Memorial is of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. There are various symbolic features on the statue. The statue itself was made by an artist named Daniel Chester French. He was an American artist, well known all over the world. He built a statue that was in many parts. It was so large, 19 feet tall, made of Georgia marble. And it has various symbolic features that go along with the man and the building that is the memorial it sits in. The chair he sits in is an ancient Roman Greek chair that officials would use. The sticks that you see along near his hands are called fasces. Bound together, they are strong. Many sticks together are strong. Strength through unity. One stick, very small, very brittle sometimes, easily broken. The United States is 50 states together. Strength through unity. The statue.
Hello, I'm Jim Hardy, and I thought I'd just give you a little insight into what I do on an average working day. I work as what's known as a general practitioner in the UK. That's maybe like a primary care physician, perhaps in the States. I'm not quite sure if the same system is evident over there. But anyway, the key for me is trying to unravel the kind of things that have been said in people's heads, the kind of conversations that people have had with themselves and other people before they come down to see me. Because I'm aware that if, for instance, somebody's in pain or discomfort, they may have spent a considerable time hoping that it might disappear, or possibly that it might improve on its own. And so there's often a considerable amount of time that may have elapsed, and with that a whole load of narrative possibility will have developed in that person's head. So for me, the challenge is to sit with that person and try and untangle their narrative in a very short space of time, and end up at the end of it with a degree of closure, or if you like, moving of the situation forwards in some way that achieves meaning for the person and leaves us both feeling reasonably satisfied.
I'm going to start by telling you something of the history. We know it was there in the 11th century, and we know that the original name meant wooden bridge. Later, a large castle was built in Trowbridge, but this was slowly taken to bits, and the stones were used for building houses for the people who lived in the town. In the late 18th and the 19th centuries, the woolen industry in the town grew rapidly. It had always been there in the houses of the people, but then it became a factory industry. And they began to make some very good quality cloth called Medley, which was among the best in the world. Unfortunately for Trowbridge, the woolen industry in the north of England could make wool a lot cheaper than we could in Trowbridge, and so the factories began to close, and the last factory closed in 1986. It was replaced mainly by the food industry, and we had two very large food factories, Usher's, which brewed beer, and Bowyer's, which made sausages, bacon, and pies. But they too have now both closed, and the industries that we have got at the moment are a firm which makes beds, and another which makes frozen foods for old people who live alone, and they send it all over the country.
What do I think about London?
Yes.
I love London because I worked in London for a long time, so it's got everything. Everything is at your fingertips. It doesn't matter whether you want theatres, cinemas, nightclubs, everything is within your grasp. It's expensive, but it's a wonderful city. Yeah. Oh well, yeah, the London Eye is quite spectacular. It's a very welcome addition. Yes, it's quite something. It's a really good experience. Yes. Okay. I lived in London, yes, but I don't now. I live here. This is my home. We're here in Oxford. I live in Oxford most of my life, but I've worked in London. So it was very easy for me to work in London and come home if I wanted to at the weekend, or the other way around. So it's London is 15 minutes from here, so it's perfectly situated to get wherever you want.
Nelson Mandela was the president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. Before becoming president, Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist. In 1962, he was arrested and convicted of sabotage and other charges and sentenced to life in prison. Mandela served 27 years in prison. As president, he frequently gave priority to reconciliation while introducing policies aimed at combating poverty and equality in Africa. Mandela received more than 250 awards over 4 decades, including the 1993 Nobel Peace Prize. In the film Invictus, Mandela was portrayed as a man who sought to reconcile the black and white populations of South Africa through encouraging forgiveness. For me, this made Mandela a real example and a role model.
So hello, my name is Mark. I come from London. I lived and worked in London for many years. I came to France in 1991, so I've been in France now for quite a few years as well. I have a London accent. I don't speak Queen's English, as they say. I speak really with a Londinian accent. Was born in a prefab, which is one of those buildings that were built after World War II to house people, because as London was badly bombed, my parents used to live in the Old Kent Road, which is in Cockney part of London, so that's why my accent's Cockney. And I was born and bred in a prefab, there you go. And then I worked in London at the Tottenham Court Road area in television, where I was a researcher, film researcher. Before that I worked in theatres as well, at Drury Lane, Covent Garden, Strand, and Theatreland. And then I decided to come to France. And I continued to work in television in France. I work for a sports channel. And I still do research, but it's completely different to research that we do in England. It's another kind of profession over here. It's different. But it's good, and sports-based, so it's good fun. It's good fun. I have a team of 23 people, all French natives, 3 teams, and we speak in English and in French. So that's how we do business over here. So I play electric guitar. In a group, never too old to play music, and we do some concerts. We did this year we've done four concerts so far. 2 big ones. One was in Namur in Belgium a couple of weeks ago, and the other one we played in the Ile-de-France area. Had a very good stage and everything. It was really good. We can't play very well, but at least people seem to dance and move, so that's okay. That's the main thing. Get people moving and good party atmosphere. So we're 6 in the group. We've got 2 guitarists, a keyboard player, a singer, a bass player, and who else? There's somebody else. There's a chorist. There's a chorist as well. So we do all sorts of cover versions. Television, telephone. We do U2, we do Noir Désir, The Cure. So we're quite varied in our musical tastes. We're quite different age groups as well. The age groups go from 20 to 54 in the group. So just to give you an idea of the kind of musical taste that we've got, quite different. And it seems to go down well anyway, so we've been together now for 2 years and we started to play concerts, so it's good fun. I hope that it lasts a long time.
Martin Luther King Jr. was an American clergyman, activist, and prominent leader in the African American civil rights movement. He is best known for his role in the advancement of civil rights in the United States and around the world. He used non-violent methods and followed in the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. In 1963, he led a march on Washington where he delivered his very famous "I Have a Dream" speech. In 1964, King became the youngest person to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for his work to end social segregation and discrimination through non-violent ways. By the time of his death in 1968, he focused on ending poverty and stopping the Vietnam War. Martin Luther King was assassinated on the 4th of April 1968 in Memphis, and now Martin Luther King Day is a US holiday.
School mascots are used to encourage a team's fans to help them win. What they do is they usually go out there and will help cheer the crowd on and get the crowd fired up during a certain game or sporting event for the school, and they will encourage the fans to cheer their team on to victory. One of the more famous ones where I come from is the Michigan Wolverine.
I'm a teacher at Abbeyfield School, and I was brought up in Middlesex, in the edge of London, and I lived there till I was about 3, and my dad then got a job in Berkshire, so we moved to Berkshire so he would be nearer work, and from the age of about 3 I was brought up in a small town called Crowthorne with my elder sister Belinda and my younger brother Simon and my mum and my dad. And I went to local comprehensive school called Edgebarrow, which served me very well because I did my A-levels there, and then I went to university in Warwick where I read accountancy and financial analysis, and after that I went into accountancy for a year until I realised that I was enjoying the voluntary teaching work much better than the work I was doing that I was being paid for. So I did my PGCE, became a teacher, and I've been a teacher now for 15 years, always in Wiltshire, and I'm now the head of maths at Comprehensive School in Chippenham. As a hobby, I do a fair amount of running and a little bit of cycling. I run half marathons, 10-kilometre races, and have done my most recent race in a local town called Corsham, which was about a fortnight ago. First hot day of the year, quite a good race, slower than last year, but a little bit quicker than I thought I'd do. I live with my partner called Rosie, and we have 2 cats, and one of them is very elusive, Alfie, who we rarely see, and one of them who's Florence, who's a complete tart and loves company. Time's up now, so I'm going to stop. Nice talking to you.
So initially I started liking British indie rock bands such as Oasis and Blair, and then from there I went back to discover the bands who had influenced them, and from there I found the punk era in the 1970s, which saw the emergence of Joy Division and The Clash. I believe here is where my current musical interests originate, although I do enjoy relaxing to 1960s American guitar music such as Bob Dylan and the Velvet Underground. When I went to university I started listening to a lot of hip-hop because my friends there had the same taste, and I've since discovered a love for hip-hop jazz, for example Mos Def or The Roots. I also like listening to French hip-hop because I believe the fast pace of the language is ideal for creating a good flow. Whilst I've been living in Paris, I've been enjoying lots of French electronic music such as Phoenix, Birdie Nam Nam and Agoria. One of my absolute goals, however, is for me to see Daft Punk in Paris before I leave.
Alright, well, we're based in Heathrow Airport in Terminal 5. Well, we opened the shop back in March, on the 1st of March. And we sell from pin badges, clothes, soft toys, all branded like Adidas and Stella McCartney. We do a lot of mugs and a lot of gifts, souvenirs. What else? You get luggage bags and stuff like that too. The popular ones we get a lot is like the kids' clothes for the London 2012 for the Olympics, and we also get like a lot of customers coming in for all the T-shirts with the logos and the pin badges for different sports. And I guess the business is pretty good, so we're just waiting for the Olympics to start soon now.
Why is it famous? It's got basically the oldest university in the world, which is Magdalen College, which is just down the road there. It's got the oldest high school in the world, which is also at the same place. It's basically the whole town is a university. It's got one of the oldest pubs in the world, which is called the Turf, which is just down there, where Bill Clinton, Richard Nixon, various other famous people have been. And there's the oldest building in Oxford, directly opposite is the tower there. It dates back to the medieval ages.
And it really made people in America come together as a whole because it was a terrible tragedy and nobody understood why it had to happen. It's something that I hope is never repeated in my lifetime, that I wish to see or have to deal with again. It was just a very, very sad thing. And it was unbelievable that somebody could formulate a plan to attack a place like that. Imagine, like, say, if somebody was to blow up the Eiffel Tower on a very busy day when there's a lot of tourists there and all those people were to die, and just craziness like that. I can't begin to imagine what it must have felt like to be there or to even have to deal with that situation. You can't even begin to understand the scope of what those people had to deal with. It's just a terrible tragedy, one that I hope is never repeated, ever. Hi, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the anniversary date of September 11th, 2001. What it was a day in America when pretty much time stopped because there was a terrorist attack in New York City. What had happened is a group of terrorists known as Al-Qaeda had hijacked 4 American planes and crashed them into certain places and or buildings. One of them was the Pentagon in the United States, but more importantly there were 2 that had crashed into the Twin Towers in New York City and had caused the buildings to collapse. It had caused the death of roughly 4,000 plus people, and it was just a terrible, terrible day. Okay, the best explanation of Halloween is this. It's a time for kids to go out and collect candy and to spend time with their parents doing an activity. But really it's about the gift giving for children and making fun with that. What they do is they have young children who can either make a costume, or now a lot of places in the U.S. will even sell ready-to-made costumes in which their favorite characters like Superman or Batman or anything they can think of that you would see on TV would be in a ready-to-make costume. And what it is the children would go out with their parents or older relatives and they go from door to door and they collect candy. Other activities would include stuff like they carve pumpkins and make faces on pumpkins, and food stuff like pumpkin seeds. There's so many things associated with it, but the main thing is for the kids to dress up in costume or make a costume and go out with their parents or older relatives, like I said, and collect candy from house to house. And it is fun because the kids will come to the door and they'll say trick or treat, and they're usually going to get candy from the house. And it happens for a few hours once a year, and it is really a lot of fun. If I was stuck on a desert island, what would I want to bring with me? Perhaps a warm set of clothing, a good pair of shoes, and at least something to be able to write with somehow, like maybe some markers or something, so I could keep track of the days and months and all that. Although I would say it would be kind of rough because there would be no internet and no phone and no TV. I don't know if I would be able to make it. Maybe if I had some good reading material and had some fun that way. Hi. For the New Year's in America, we celebrate what's called a New Year's resolution, in which we try to give up bad things that people do to make themselves healthier and happier. So my New Year's resolution this year will to try to quit smoking, which is very hard for me because I do enjoy to smoke, and I really know that I need to give it up. So for my New Year's resolution, I will try to quit smoking and not smoke anymore. But it can be very difficult, and sometimes people will not be able to make their New Year's resolutions, but it will be one thing that I will try to give up. New Year's resolutions are great. It's the time of year just after Christmas, the beginning of the year, when people in America make resolutions to stop doing bad things, such as to quit smoking, or maybe to stop drinking, or to not drink pop, stuff like that, or resolutions to try and lose weight, because they want to better themselves and make themselves healthier and do better things for their body. Sometimes they make it tough, though, because sometimes you seem to fall back on your old bad habits. But that's what New Year's resolutions are all about in the United States. To keep trying to make yourself better. Things like that. Yes, in America, they had the presidential election in which Barack Obama was reelected as president. This has many mixed emotions and feelings for America, as many people did not actually want to see Barack Obama get reelected because he did not do many of the things that he said he was going to do in his first 4 years of office. But the people chose to reelect him almost because Mitt Romney was the lesser of two evils, and he wanted to raise taxes for the middle class and lower taxes for the upper class, and a lot of people didn't want to see that happen, so they chose to go back and reelect Barack Obama, even though he's not done many of the things he was supposed to, and many of the citizens in the United States are very unhappy about it, but they chose to stay with him to see if he could improve and do better things for us. How to make pumpkin pie. The ingredients you will need are 250 grams of pastry, 725 milliliters of milk, 750 milliliters of cream, 720 grams of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 3 eggs, and of course some pumpkin pie filling or pumpkin pie mixture from a pumpkin. Step 1. You want to open and cut the interior of the pumpkin into cubes. You will then place the pumpkin cubes from your pumpkin into a saucepan with a little bit of water and simmer until the water has evaporated. This is done to soften the pumpkin up. Once this is done, you can put it aside. Next, you will beat the eggs, mix with the pumpkin, brown sugar, cinnamon, milk, and cream. Put your pumpkin pastry into a pie dish and cook up to 40 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius. You will know your pumpkin pie is done when you are able to place a knife in it and pull it back out without any of the mixture sticking. Once you're satisfied, you may enjoy.
Depends on, like, the French restaurant in here, they are so expensive. Their portion is very small. I don't like to go to French restaurant. It's kind of like, you go in there paying $100, $150 per person, and which is, you're not even, like, you're still getting out table hungry. It's no fun. Like typical burgers too much, I like Mediterranean foods. We have many restaurants in Georgetown, but they are kind of still not very cheap. Georgetown they have many restaurants, but probably price range is $30 or $40 per person. It depends. Like, you have a lot of variety. You have Chinese restaurant, Vietnamese, Korean, whatever you name it, you can find all type of restaurant everywhere. You can try. We have a Chinatown in DC. You can try to go one there. A lot of Chinese restaurant. It's very different. They have a big, kind of historical gate. They built it. It's totally different. It seems like you're getting in China, kind of.
Of course, what was just discussed was in itself stereotypical. Stereotypes are actually very important because once they're formed, they can exert several powerful effects. First, they can actually lead individuals to assume consistencies which don't really exist. And secondly, they can actually exert a powerful influence on any further information that may be received regarding the culture. So for this reason, and unfortunately, stereotypes are both very common and very persistent. And because they formed over a long time, they actually change very slowly. And as a result of this, unfortunately, many wrong impressions are given of different cultures due to stereotypes. Of course, what was just discussed was in itself stereotypical. Stereotypes are actually very important because once they're formed, they can exert several powerful effects. First, they can actually lead individuals to assume consistencies which don't really exist. And secondly, they can actually exert a powerful influence on any further information that may be received regarding the culture. So for this reason, and unfortunately, stereotypes are both very common and very persistent. And because they formed over a long time, they actually change very slowly. And as a result of this, unfortunately, many wrong impressions are given of different cultures due to stereotypes. Some English people think that the French drink a lot of wine, they eat a lot of cheese, and in England some English people call the French by the name frogs because they eat frogs' legs. Also, the another perception is that they wear berets, that the French wear berets whilst riding their bicycle with onions around their neck. Also, they have a reputation for being superb cooks, and the stereotypical gastronauts or experts in gastronomy.
Began. School on the Air is a service used by many Australian children who live in the outback. Because Australia is so large and many people live far from schools in the country, they must stay at home and receive their school lessons over the radio. The idea was thought of by Miss Adelaide Maithke in 1946 and allowed many school children who went to boarding schools or used letters to do schoolwork to study at home with their families and have a better education. School on the Air began in 1946, and in a few years the idea had spread through most of Australia's bushland. In 2005 there were 16 schools of the air providing primary education to children. Recently, schools have opened which allow secondary school classes and some adult courses to be taught as well. Currently, many teachers try to visit all their students during the year and even organise sports events to help their students meet their fellow classmates. Normally, students will visit their school a few times every year to use the school's facilities and attend graduation day. Increased access to the internet has helped many students study online instead of using the radio, and has made learning far more interactive. Teachers are now able to see, speak and listen to all their students, even though they are hundreds of kilometres away.
Okay, my name's Sean Doherty. I grew up in Scotland, in Dumfries and Galloway. I stayed there for 19 years of my life. Went to school, Walls Hall Academy was the name of my school. I lived with my mum, my dad. I had a brother and two sisters, one younger and one was older. After school, I decided to go to university at Birmingham, and I've just graduated and have a degree in geology. I'm currently on a year out and plan to go back to study the rest of my geology degree in London. I live in Manchester at the moment with my friend Mary, and I do volunteer work at the Manchester Museum, helping kids get interested in geology and helping to teach them the importance of geology in our society at the moment. And I also work in Jury's Inn in the food and beverage department because I thoroughly enjoy bar and restaurant work just for a bit of fun. In my spare time I like to go walking, going out drinking with most of my friends. We enjoy camping. Water sports is one of my favourite things, canoeing, windsurfing. And my family, my dad's side of the family, my name is Sean Doherty. Doherty comes from my dad's side. My dad's family are originally from Ireland, from a place called Donegal. My mum's side of the family are from southern Scotland, where I grew up. The part of Scotland where I'm from is very famous for a man called Robert Burns, who wrote Auld Lang Syne, which many people will know. And that's it. Is that okay?
Thanksgiving is important to us because it is when the country was founded, when the Pilgrims first came here from England. We celebrate it as a way of supporting the start of the original 13 colonies of the United States of America. It is done in remembrance, and it is also to give thanks for when we arrived, the people that were here welcomed us, the Native Americans. We usually celebrate by eating a big meal, having friends and family over, and talking of old stories of times past.
There is one company called Zipcar. You're renting the bicycles on the street, bicycles. You have to register on that company on internet, online. And you can pick up any bicycle anywhere you want. They have stations all around the DC. Even they have a parking lot. You can pick up the cars also. They're giving you special cards that you can open the door, but even they're giving you like that kind of credit card. Even when you pick up the bicycle is locked. Mm-hmm. You're opening the lock, that kind of stuff. It's very useful. Like if you live in a city, of course you don't need a car. If you need a car, you just pick it up like a couple hours, and it doesn't cost you too much. Like it's in here like $10, $15, which is nothing.
Library of Congress today, the Jefferson Building, which is right across the street from the United States Capitol. This building was built in 1897 for about $6 million, and it was under budget. It's the most beautiful building in Washington. The art and architecture is quite extraordinary. The library itself has approximately 135 million things: books, films, artifacts, ephemera, recordings, anything that's published in the United States that has a copyright, we get 2 copies of. We employ over 4,000 people on a global basis looking and collecting various materials for its collection. We have a large rare book collection, European reading room, you name it, we have it, quite frankly. We also have one of the largest Bible collections in the world. Its purpose is to serve the United States Congress, both the House and the Senate, to provide them with support services. We have over 800 people that just do research for the United States government, for the Congress, which is the United States House and the United States Senate. So it was actually founded in 1800, the Library of Congress, and we went into this building in 1897. We now have 3 buildings on the campus and over 600 miles of shelves and materials.
DC itself, they don't have any representative in the federal government, but they have their own rules, own laws, and they have their own tax rates and everything. It seems kind of state, but it's not state. It's not. It's kind of special. In DC by itself, there are several 100,000 people living in the town. Small town, not very big. DC total population is almost 6 or 7 million people. We don't say Washington. DC is District of Columbia.
Transport in Melbourne is a real mixture of new and old. With a population of over 4 million people, we use many forms of public and private transport. Within the heart of the city, cars and bicycles are used as private transport to go to work or school. The major train stations are all located around the central business district and connect the suburbs to Melbourne. They also bring people to and from other states and cities. Melbourne is home to a large tram network. It has been used for over 120 years. Currently, trams work all around the city centre and reach out into the inner suburbs too. A new initiative for transport within the city is a bicycle hiring system, where people can pay to borrow a bicycle for a day to ride around the city. Public transport is very important for Melbourne's population, as hundreds of thousands of workers and students come into the city every day. However, in the outer suburbs, trains do not connect major regions, as all lines move towards the city. Instead of trains and trams, buses are used to provide transport between commercial, industrial, and residential areas. Melbourne's large population cannot be moved by public transport alone. Many people use cars or trucks. Particularly in the outer suburbs, the car is vital for transport, as public transport cannot reach all areas. Melbourne has a large road and highway network all around the city to allow fast travel for those travelling into, out of, and around the city. Melbourne has two airports, Tullamarine and Avalon. Tullamarine is the second busiest airport in Australia and provides both domestic and international flights. No tram or train services reach the airports, so special airport bus services run from the city. Melbourne has Australia's largest international freight port. The ports are also home to the Spirit of Tasmania, a ferry service running between Melbourne and the state of Tasmania.
My name is Ian, and I come from Dallas, Texas, the United States. In order to win the presidential election, the candidate must win a majority of the votes in what's called the Electoral College. There are 538 votes in the Electoral College. In order to win, a candidate must gain at least 270 votes. There is also a vote called the popular vote. Every 4 years, everyone in the United States votes for the presidential candidate that they prefer, and every person must vote in the state or for the state in which they live. After all the votes in each state have been counted up, the popular vote is known, and the candidate who has gained more votes in a state wins that state's Electoral College votes. The state's Electoral College votes, the number that each state has, depends on the population density of the state. California and Texas, for example, two states with very large populations, have very many Electoral College votes. A state like Wyoming, unfortunately, because of its small population, only has 3 Electoral College votes.
Well, greetings. My name is Wayne Goodmanson, and I'm about to turn 61 years of age. I'm an old guy, and I grew up in the middle of the United States, in a state called Minnesota, which sits right next to Canada. And growing up in the Midwest, as we call it then, was kind of an isolated experience in some ways, but we lived just on the edge of the town, and it was great for a sort of a gang of little boys to sort of hang out on the edge because there was new construction, and we always had dangerous things to climb on, and there seemed to be a lot of kids kind of my age, and we could get adequately dirty and play games outside. We had some vacant lots around where we lived, which provided a place to play baseball and American football, and in the wintertime they would simply build a little trench around some of these lots and then flood them with water, and it gets very cold up there, and so by the middle of November we would have a skating rink. And so the other sport we had on these lots was ice hockey. So it's hockey in the winter, baseball in the summer, and football in the fall. So it was quite an idyllic place for a little boy. So that was those are my early years. Hi, my name is Wayne Goodmanson again, and I teach at a university in Minnesota called Minnesota State University Moorhead. A very clumsy title, but nonetheless, that's what it is. And I teach photography in a department of mass communications. I was recently in England where I did a lecture at the University of Lincoln in England, and I was struck by the differences between the European universities and the American universities. A lot of similarities, but some of the differences really have to do with how often the classes meet and kind of the different kinds of projects that are due. But basically, there's a lot of similarities. The academic years are very close to the same, but unlike the European universities, most of which have 3 years of study, we have 4. And of course, the difference is your Bach year, which basically is the same as our first year at university. So that's the primary difference.
The World of Warcraft is known as an MMORPG, which stands for Multimedia Online Role-Playing Game. Currently, I have about 8 characters that are maxed out at their top level, which is 85. These characters can range from what would be a tank, DPS, or healing. And what happens in the game is that people from all over the world log in to the game on their computers through the internet and play in anywhere from single person modes to groups of 5 to groups of 25 to do what's called a dungeon and raid. What it is you log in to get experience to level your character and get equipment for your character. But the big thing is to get people to cooperate in groups, which is kind of cool because I've played and talked to people from all over the world in the game. It is a lot of fun. The only bad part is I spend about 10 to 15 hours a week playing it, which means I spend about 2 to 3 hours a day.
So Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the nation. It's one of the most rural. And a fact that correlates with that is that almost 10% of the economy is based on trees, and people growing trees or cutting down trees or making paper from trees or making some other kind of biomass from trees. It's very quiet, but it's not very progressive in Mississippi. There are many people who are racist. There's not that many of us, I guess, maybe only 2 or 3 million in the whole state, and it's a relatively large state. But one of the nice things is that when you grow up in the country, you have a lot of time to spend by yourself. So when I was growing up, I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of walking around in the woods. Never in the summer, though, because you don't want to get bitten by snakes.
Hi, it's Paul. My best holidays ever is when myself and 3 of my friends went to Las Vegas, Nevada in the United States. It was very exciting. We got to stay at the Caesars Palace, and it was really neat because there are so many good shows to see and so much good food to eat, and it was very inexpensive. We did a lot of gambling. You could gamble a lot, and you could spend very little money and see so much entertainment. It was very exciting. I wish to maybe someday live there because of all the fun you can have. I mean, it never stops. All day is traveling and seeing sights and seeing the Hoover Dam, and then you can just come back to the hotel and either go to the pool or you could go to dinner and have very good food for very cheap money. And it was just, if you can ever get to go there, it would be a lot of fun and you would really enjoy it. It's one of those things in life that when you take a trip like that, you'll always remember, especially when you get to go with 3 of your good friends.
My name is Matthew, and I'm from Cambridge in the United Kingdom. I'm going to speak about my hometown, Cambridge, which is a historical city located 1 hour north of London. It is one of the only cities in the United Kingdom without a cathedral, yet it is still called a city because of its university. The university is incredibly famous and has recently celebrated its 800th birthday. It is made up of many colleges and has hosted many famous students and teachers, such as Isaac Newton, Watson and Crick, who discovered DNA, and more recently Stephen Hawking. Cambridge is incredibly flat and is therefore perfect for bicycles. You will see thousands of bicycles in Cambridge each day, as well as many open green spaces, such as Parker's Piece and Midsummer Common. The River Cam runs through Cambridge, and you will see lots of people punting. Punting is a leisurely activity on a small boat called a punt, very similar to a gondola in Venice.
Well, my name's Chris and I work here as a guide for the museum. So my job entails, at the start of the day, meeting any groups that want to look around the museum and be guided into various areas, depending on what they want to see, whether it be Victorian times, later times, or whatever it is. So I take them around the museum and find the bits of it that fit to whatever they want to see during the day. Okay? And when they get to where we're going to, the buildings and things, they see, okay, there's demonstrators in there to explain more to them about the buildings. Okay? And it's just to make sure that you have a good time while you're here. That's what I'm here to do. You're not here to do it, you're here to see everything. But some schools come just to see, say, Victorian living standards. Okay.
Right.
So I have to find the bits in the museum that relate to that Victorian living standard. Okay. But today you can see everything. Okay. So that's my job.
As Americans, we really don't have any food habits. We eat whenever we want, and we eat whatever we want normally. So if I had some hankering for pizza at the moment, I would go buy myself pizza and I would eat the pizza. I don't care what time of day it is, I'll eat the pizza. And say that would be my breakfast. And my lunch could be a small sandwich like the size of a dime, or a very, very large cheeseburger, which sounds really good right now. Anyway, yeah, we really don't have food habits. We eat whatever we want. And if you're hungry, you go find food, or somebody has food, and they'll give you the food. We don't care. We'll share our food. We're just hungry, and we want food.
Halloween. What can I say about Halloween? The most interesting thing for me about Halloween is that it's a holiday which started in Ireland. It was a Celtic tradition called Samhain, which took place at the end of October, before what they used to call All Saints' Day, or maybe they still call it now, I'm not sure. During this festival, people used to disguise themselves in order to scare away the people who were rising from the dead. So people continue this tradition to this day. In Ireland, it's a very, very famous tradition. People love dressing up and going around to different houses in order to receive treats. And if they don't receive a treat, they like to play a trick, which usually involves throwing eggs at houses or throwing toilet paper at houses. So we call this tradition trick or treat. Irish people also like to play lots of games at Halloween. Some games include bobbing for apples, where you put a basin of water on the floor and you must put your hands behind your back and you put apples in the water, and by dipping your head in the water you can bite the apples, but you cannot use your hands. So it's a lot of fun and everybody likes to play it. I would like to talk about the differences and the similarities between pubs and cafes. The big similarity for me is that they are both very social places. They are places where people like to meet and to talk and to discuss things. In Ireland, people love going to the pub to talk and to socialise. In the past, it was the centre of socialisation. You didn't stay at home in the evening, you went to the pub to chat, to talk, to play games and to watch the TV. Nowadays, this has changed a lot for a number of reasons. One reason could be the smoking ban. It's forbidden to smoke in Ireland, in pubs and in bars, so people don't go as often as they used to. Also, the price of drinks in the pub has become very, very expensive. So people prefer to stay at home and to talk and to chat with their friends at home. In my opinion, I prefer going to the pub than going to the cafe because I find the atmosphere and the general ambience much more friendly and welcoming in the pub.
if you want to go to the capital, they have like a special tours going on in capital. You have to register to that tour. Have you guys registered on the website? Yeah. It means like every certain hours, 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock, you're going by the guide. Actually, you get in line and you wait a couple hours. Otherwise, if you just want to see the capital, you see from outside. You're not allowed to get in the capital if you don't have that kind of permission.
The ALS Challenge in America. What the ALS is it brings awareness for many Americans who suffer from the debilitating disease. So on Facebook, it is going around now that you either have to donate $20 or do the Ice Bucket Challenge, which means you have to take a bucket of ice water and dump it on yourself and then nominate 3 people. And then those 3 people have 24 hours to do it themselves, or they must donate $20 to ALS. And it really is a very bad disease for many Americans. It's something that has affected more and more people every year. But from what I understand, it is now catching on over in France. So I encourage you all to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. Hello, I'd like to talk to you about the iPhone 6. Recently in America, they launched the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. These are the new phones from Apple. The iPhone 6 is about 4.7 inches diagonally, and the iPhone 6 Plus is 5.5. It is a very popular phone here in the US, and people were waiting in line at the Apple stores for 2 and 3 days at a time. Most people like them just because of the brand name, but a lot of people are now picking them up because they are bigger in size, and they do compete better with the other phones such as the Samsung Galaxies and the Notes. As far as the watches that are coming out from Apple, that won't be until early 2015, but you can believe that I have purchased mine in advance.
Children should wear a uniform. It adds to discipline and motivation to let them know the real reason why they're at school. It's not a fashion parade. School is for learning and, taken seriously.
Okay, hello, my name is John, and I was born in Iowa in the United States, and I wanted to talk about something that bothers me, and that is when I go to the grocery store, and you're in a long line, and you're waiting and waiting to get to the cashier, and the woman in front of you is in the same line, and she's got a huge basket full of food. And as the checker keeps moving the items through the scanner, the woman is talking to the people around her and looking around and everything else, and people are waiting and getting anxious, and children are crying and grabbing for candy that's right next to the cashier. And then the checker says, that will be $45, for example. And the woman looks at her like she's surprised that she has to pay for this food that she has put on. And then she opens up her huge purse and digs around trying to find her wallet. Well, we've all been standing in line for 15 minutes waiting for her to find her wallet. And when she finally finds her wallet, then she says, oh, I have these coupons. Can I use the coupons? And the checker said yes. And so she starts going through a huge bag of coupons to see what she can get. Did I buy this? And the checker says, no, I don't think so. Let's look. So while you waited in line for 20 minutes, then this woman figures out that she must pay for her food. And then she decides she wants to get all the discounts possible. In the meantime, everyone behind her, me especially, is just fuming, going, once again, whenever I go to the store, first I get in the wrong line because it takes forever. And second, I always get behind women like this. I guess it's always women in my hand. And then the third thing is, when I get there, then the cashier says, oh, I'm sorry, the paper is out on my machine. You'll have to go to the next line. And it makes me almost homicidal because I just am not a patient person.
The other things to do, of course, is just to appreciate the
the life in London. So the best place to go for that is really Covent Garden. Covent Garden is what used to be a vegetable and fruit market for centuries, and then it suddenly changed in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and become a centre of sort of like artistic life in some respects, because you have lots of people playing music, doing little theatre acts, and there's generally a good atmosphere because it's all paved off and you can do different things and just enjoy London life in a different way, because you don't have the bustle and the hustle of all the traffic and wanting to cross roads and things like that. And there are lots of things to distract you. You can also even do some shopping if you're really interested in that, but I can't stand shopping personally. Okay, today I'd like to talk about London and the experience of going there. Well, London, of course, is an enormous city. The main attractions are, of course, in the centre of the town, around the Thames. And one of the things I really like doing these days is going to the South Bank, which is very active because you have different things there. You have theatres, you have museums, such as the Dali Museum, or Salvador Dali, the Spanish painter. You have lots of sculptures, and basically you just have lots of people walking about and tourists, and there's a good atmosphere. This is on the South Bank, so just opposite Westminster, which is the Houses of Parliament. Along the South Bank, you also have the Tate Modern, which is a beautiful new modern art gallery, which you can walk into for free, and you have lots of different exhibitions of modern painters, and you can just simply walk in for 5-20 minutes, something like that, and then find out what you like. Just next to the Tate Modern, of course, is the Shakespeare Theatre, the Globe, which has been entirely reconstructed. It was a project by an American enthusiast, and he gave the money because otherwise the English wouldn't be able to afford it. And he had the great idea of reconstructing this theatre as it was before it burnt down. And the theatre is called the Globe, and it was built at the end of the 16th century. And of course it was the site of Shakespeare's famous plays such as Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet. All the famous plays were played there, particularly towards the end of his life. Unfortunately, the theatre burnt down for the first time at the beginning of the 17th century, and then burnt down definitively when there was the Great Fire in London, which destroyed everything, which is about the mid-17th century. I can't remember the exact date, but around 1750, something like that. 1650, sorry. Hello, my name is Kevin McCabe, and I'm from England. However, I live in France, and I've been living in France for over 20 years now. The question you might ask yourself is, why live in France for 20 years when you're English? Well, quite simply because I love the country, and I love the customs and the language. So I decided to stay here because it's a fascinating place, because I have lots of friends which I've made, and I've also my French wife and my French family. So that's basically why I stayed in France. I'll tell you what I do in France. I'm a teacher, and I teach English in a school and a high school, or a sixth form college, you might say in English. This is really interesting for me because I can meet French people who are learning English and French students, and I can really get to know a lot about their interests, their life, and I really enjoy meeting young people and teaching them their language. They do have some difficulties, but it's all good fun, and everybody learns to say a few words at the end of the first year and even at the end of the fourth year. Right. Everybody has their favorite superhero, particularly when they're a young adolescent boy. And I think my favorite when I was about 14, 15 was Spider-Man. I remember being very attracted to Spider-Man, quite simply because he's just, in daily life, a normal person. But that's the idea with superheroes, that in everyday life they're just like you and I. They pass off as somebody who's quite normal, but then they can change into somebody with extraordinary powers, which is, I think, what I dreamt about when I was younger. And of course they always do things good, and so you
you put yourself in this role when you're much younger. I like Peter Parker because he was, I think, also a photographer. And I was really interested in photography when I was younger, and I still am. So he is a daily reporter, and he takes photographs of various scenes. And then, of course, he intervenes as Spider-Man, which is his alter ego. I think I remember other characters as well, like the Green Goblin, who was quite interesting, quite fun, because he could fly about and do what he wanted to and when he wanted to. Of course, Peter Parker, I think, is also interesting because of the fact that he took on the qualities of a spider. So it's an animal, or not really an animal, but a small beast which anyone can come across, really. And we understand that this animal has extraordinary ability to go from one place to another by using its web.
Hello, my name is Andrew. Our city is famous for sports. There are 2 football teams in Liverpool, Liverpool Football Club and Everton Football Club. Liverpool is one of the most successful football teams in the world. They play at Anfield. Everton play at Goodison Park. In Liverpool, there is also Aintree Racecourse, where the famous Grand National is held every year. In addition, every year there is a race called the Santa Dash, where thousands of people take to the streets, dressed as Santa Claus, to run 5 kilometres for charity.
Hi, I'm Ollie, and I'm also from Liverpool. Liverpool is famous for music too. A very famous band called the Beatles came from Liverpool. They sang songs called Yellow Submarine, Love Me Do, and Twist and Shout. Other bands like the Zootons, Atomic Kitten, and A Flock of Seagulls also come from there. Liverpool is a boss city.
Hi, my name is Max, and I'm selling cupcakes for charity today. It's for RAG Skydive. So a group of us are going skydiving to raise money for charity. RAG supports 10 different charities, some local ones, helping homeless people in the area, giving money to cancer research and things like that, and some international charities helping people overseas. For example, for clean water in Africa, for food, for help in crisis areas and things like that. So today we've baked some cupcakes and we're going around and trying to sell these to raise some money.
Very shortly now we shall be demonstrating the safety equipment and the procedures that we have on board this British Airways Boeing 747-400 aircraft. The video does contain important information. It is for your benefit, and I would like you please to watch and listen very carefully. If you are using any electronic devices, that does include your laptop, mobile telephone, any MP3 players, we would ask they are now switched off. If you are wearing any headsets, would you please remove them at this time. Cabin crew, please stand by. Thank you.
They're free. A couple of them, they are paying some admission fees, like the News View, one of them. Another one is the Spy Museum. I think you're paying a lot of money, $50. This is the expensive one. Mine is probably, my favorite is Airspace Museum. But there is 2 of them in here. One is right in here. It's very close to Dallas. It's like 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes far away from Dallas. This one is much bigger than in DC. But DC is like an Airspace Museum. They have a lot of airplanes, different airplanes. It's Concorde also. This one in here, New York Concorde. One of them is saying there.
Oxford University is made up of about 32 colleges altogether, with colleges named as Magdalen, Trinity, Keble, Jesus, etc. And they're all under the name of Oxford University. Each college can have students from 600 up to a couple of thousand. Magdalen College is the largest of all colleges in Oxford. They're also used in the boat race, and basically all the colleges will come together and their rowers will be used as a university rowing team, which will then have to race against Cambridge once a year in London,
which is called the University Boat Race. And basically eight people altogether from Oxford University will race against 8 people from Cambridge University, and that'll happen once a year. Also, punting, the tradition of punting was actually dated back over 100 years ago for basic use as transport, and it was used to transport cargo up and down the River Cherwell, which we're on at the moment, and also the River Thames. And it's just used in Oxford and Cambridge now as entertainment value of going out, having a nice day, for families and friends, and also students go punting, very often. And the colleges in Oxford also rent our boats and to go punting within season, which is between spring and autumn. I'm
not sure the exact date. It's for Comic Relief, a big televised event where a lot of comedians come together and try to do something funny for money, which is the slogan. And people also go around wearing red noses and try and raise money like that. Can generally be anyone, yeah. It's usually students and school children mainly, but it can be anyone.
I remember it pretty well because I was just getting up, getting ready for work, and I happened to turn on the news, and it said that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center, the first building. And I thought, it's just a little plane, but then it came out that it was a hijacked plane, and it was purposely flown into the first tower. About 45 minutes later, as they're broadcasting on the news, it was said that a second plane had hit the other tower, and a half hour after that, the first tower had collapsed. About 35-40 minutes after that, the second tower had collapsed. And just so you understand, these buildings were 100 stories plus tall. They had anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 people in each building, either working in them, being there for appointments, and whatnot. And in the aftermath, it was said that close to 4,000 people had lost their lives, whether it be people working in the building or people that were trying to save them after the buildings were already hit by the planes, like firemen, police officers, rescue workers. And it was just very terrible, like nobody could believe it had happened. It was very sad, it was very devastating to see the kind of chaos that happens. And it's one of those things that should never be forgotten, that it always should be remembered. Baseball in America is played with 2 teams, each team containing 22 players. When a team goes up to bat, they have 3 outs, which means when one person goes up, they get 3 swings to swing at a ball. If they miss it, they're considered an out, and that's 1 out for the side. After 3 of those outs, the teams switch sides on the field, 1 team pitching and 1 team catching. This is played through 9 innings of baseball. Each inning contains 3 outs for each team. And in the summertime in the U.S., it is one of the national pastime sports that every American likes to watch, and most Americans like to go and attend games. I personally go to about a dozen games a year. The Super Bowl in America is probably the single most sporting event that is watched on TV and live every year. Most people enjoy it because they get to see 2 very good football teams play a great game, and it's popular for many reasons. People get together, they have parties, they enjoy picking their favorite team, who's going to win. Usually we get together with friends and we'll have a party and invite a bunch of people over, and a lot of people like it too because it has many, many great car commercials. But there's also so many other aspects. There's big gambling for it in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it's really good to watch. My favorite team out here, unfortunately, is the Detroit Lions from Michigan. Although they didn't do too good this year and didn't make it into the Super Bowl, they will do better. But I'm looking forward to watching the Super Bowl Sunday because I get together with friends and we just have a couple drinks and watch the game and see the good commercials, the new commercials, the car commercials, stuff like that. It's very exciting in America. Like I said, it's probably the #1 show that gets watched every year. and for it to be a sporting event is just pretty cool. It's one of those things that you probably don't get to see too much of in France, but it's just, for some reason, people here like it, and they like sports.
The presents I give at Christmas time. Because Christmas is a time when music is in the air, especially Christmas carols, my favourite presents are CDs of Christmas carols. What's more, because I am an X Factor fan, I will often buy the winner's album for my friends that do not know about X Factor. And now, because of me, my friends are well acquainted with artists such as Susan Boyle. I also make jam and marmalade and give pots to my family members. Often, films will come out on DVD as well, so buying DVDs for friends is always a good idea. However, if I don't know what to buy people, then the safest options are socks or fruit.
Melbourne Cup Day in Australia is the greatest horse race we have in the entire nation. The race is over 100 years old and has always been held at Flemington Racecourse in the city of Melbourne. It is a 3,200 metre race. You start at the front straight, sorry. 2 laps around the course, and then finishing just before the grandstand. The grandstand is beautiful. It's been redone recently. Many levels are high with many secluded bars and private function rooms, but the main front is a solid glass structure covering the whole of the grandstand. So in actual fact, it's completely encased. The grandstand is shuttered from the weather, but from that grandstand and from the glass front, you look out onto the main straight and the finishing post, and in front of you have the mounting yard and where all the horses come in after the race, and all the crowd lines up. And it's a beautiful day because normally in November the weather is quite hot. It's just coming into spring, so the weather is late 20s, early 30s. Most Melbourne Cups are quite warm, and because it's such a famous race for Australians, the whole nation stops. It is called the race that stops a nation because it is a public holiday. There's no work. Everybody is home, and for my family at least, we've always had a family gathering and a barbecue, another Australian tradition, the barbecue. But we've always had a gathering on Melbourne Cup Day. And for us, it's so important. I mean, gambling in itself isn't the best of ideas, but everybody likes to have a punt. A punt is the word we use, a punt on the horses. And in our family, all the newspapers will print off all the horses for the Melbourne Cup Day. We'd cut up the paper to have all the horses. We'd put them in a hat. We all draw a horse for the race so that we're all really involved in some level in the race when it happens. And the commentating is so beautiful. I mean, you get right into it. It's only 5 minutes at most, the actual race, but it's such a beautiful moment to watch the horses thundering through, and the 100,000 people at the racecourse in beautiful suits and dresses, the celebrities, the common people. This year, 2012, we had Prince Charles from England come to watch the race, which was good. Always good to have the royals down, in one of their colonies, but we're still tied to Britain, which is good. But the race is still a beautiful tradition which we've had for so long, and yeah, I mean it's become a tradition not just for the racing community, but for the Australian community as a whole. It is something we celebrate together. It's like the grand final day for particularly Melbourne and the southern states of Australia. It's like Christmas Day. It's like Easter. It's like Australia Day. Melbourne Cup Day is one of the days where the nation just is. We don't do very much, but we just come together with our families and with our fellow people, and we just enjoy one of the days which make us Australian, which is sharing a moment. It's generally sport. We share a sporting moment and we celebrate it together, and we get really involved and we love it, and that's just a great experience too. I haven't been there myself. I've been to Flemington, but I haven't been to the Melbourne Cup Day. I hope I can go at some point in my life. I live in Melbourne, so it would be remiss of me not to go. But yeah, I mean, you go with friends, you go with family, you go to, I guess, some people go to be seen, but many people go to see. And, well, we've had some great horses in the past. Farlap was our greatest horse. Mackay Diva was a recent champion, which won the 3 Melbourne Cups in a row. I mean, we've had some famous horses come through here, and it's a real international event too. Really international. Many overseas horses come to race in the Cup because it is such a famous race now, and it's such a big race in the calendar. And it's a real international crowd, and as much as it is an Australian holiday and an Australian event, it is becoming more and more an international event with international sponsors. And it's a really great way to advertise who we are and what we do. I mean, there is an alcoholic side to things, and many people do go too far, but that's not what the day is about. The day is about coming together as a nation to enjoy ourselves and to celebrate sport and what it means, about being together and enjoying something which isn't necessarily tied to work and tied to the comings and goings of the day. It's more tied to who we are and what we like to do as a nation. And that's Melbourne Cup Day. Thank you.
The phenomenon known as taking selfies in America is the way people like to take self-pictures of themselves using their phones. And they like to do it just in a candid way where like they'll just be out in public and be like, oh, cool scenery, selfie. Or I'm at a cool place, let's take a selfie. Or just any random reason, they will just take a self-picture. That's what we call selfies. And people like to do it. It's just one of those fads that is caught on in the United States that it is a lot of fun, but at the same time is a lot of silliness in it too, because people posting these pictures on their social media pages. That's where we get the term, let me take a selfie.
He built roughly 1,000 years ago. It will celebrate its 1,000th millennium. 2066, I believe, or 2068. It obviously grew from being a wooden fort through to the building that you see today. The town of Warwick had its own Great Fire, which was in the 16th century. And if you walk through the town now on Swan Street, you can still see 2 of the original buildings. If you walk further down on the High Street, then you see a building called the Lord Leicester Hospital. Now that's 700 years old. It's not actually a hospital. It's never been a hospital as you think about it now, but it's where people that were in the military went to go and live, and they retired and they were looked after.
You guys came one of the best time of the year, actually. This is the best time to be in this. It's not cold at all. Even if you come in June, July, the weather is terrible in here. You don't want to go outside, walk like 10 minutes. Yes. It's not very hot. It's always, let's say, maybe 33, 34 Celsius, like in Europe. But the humidity is so high, very high, 95%, even 100%. It's terrible.
What do I think about France?
Yes.
Paris is my favourite city in the world, and I've been to a lot of them. But it's absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
I don't think you could go anywhere in the world and find a better. Again, it's terribly expensive. It's like London, but it's got everything. It's, as far as architecture, as far as Scotland goes, it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, without any doubt whatsoever. It's one of my favourite cities. So
Hello, my name is William Canner, and I live in South Carolina in the United States. I'm going to talk to you about the Ice Bucket Challenge and ALS. ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and it is a very severe neurological disorder. My stepdad recently passed away from ALS. The Ice Bucket Challenge has become very popular and has gone viral on the internet. What this is where a person gives an introduction about ALS, followed by selecting 3 people that you want to challenge to also participate in the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. This is followed by pouring a bucket of ice and cold water over top of your head. After which, the people that you have challenged have 24 hours to do either the same thing or donate money for ALS. There have been 2 famous people that have had ALS. One is a famous baseball player who played in the early 1900s for the New York Yankees. His name is Lou Gehrig, and in fact, in the United States, many people refer to ALS as Lou Gehrig disease. The other famous person who is still living is Stephen Hawking, a British physicist. I hope you have found this helpful, and please go learn more about ALS. Thank you.